All right. So nice to see you all, and hope you're enjoying the day. So uh, before we get to the to answering whatever questions you guys have today, I really wanted to do it a little bit different today. I wanted to, as usual, start off by answering something that I've got from online, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth with that. And I wonder if you have any questions in relation to what I want to talk about, which is pay for instructors. And I want to talk about this because the reason is I've got a whole bunch of questions about it, both from instructors and from people who are thinking about employing instructors. And the instructors have all asked some version of how much should I ask for, slash I've been offered this much. Is that a reasonable amount? And the studio owners all ask some version of the instructor asked for this much. That seems like a lot to me. Should I pay that much? Or, slash how much should I pay, this person? What's fair, what's reasonable? So, I wanted to give my views on this and hopefully spark a discussion, because I'd like to hear your views. I know just about all of you are instructors, and many of you also are either studio owners or, have worked as a manager in a studio. You basically have experience, on both sides of this conversation. And what I'm going to share is it's not science. It's just my personal opinion. So I'm eager to hear if you've got a different opinion, and very open to learning something. So anyway, here are my thoughts. And my thoughts I think are quite different to a lot of people's in this area. I basically think almost everyone in the industry thinks about this wrong, including studio owners and instructors. So in life, like not just in the Pilates world, but just if you get a job, doing a thing for somebody, you basically get paid for risk. And if you're a business owner, if you own a Pilates studio, you get paid for, you invest your money and your time and you put up the mortgage on your house to, open this studio, and the reward you get, in an ideal world is commensurate with the risk that you take in order to get that reward. And likewise in most businesses, if the business is run effectively, the business owner generally makes more profit than individual employees make, because the business owners put up their house and all that as security, whereas the employees, if the business goes bankrupt, the employees don't, they lose a job, but they don't lose their life savings. So, in my view, risk, is really a big factor in what we get paid. And conversely, like if you're a business owner and you employ somebody, well, we'll just say I come to your studio and I'm an instructor and you want to employ me as instructor. Well, if I can convince you, like if I say to you, look, if I can guarantee you that I will fill, 10 classes a week, right? Week in, week out, well, that takes risk away from you as a business owner, right? So you're no longer thinking, oh crap, what if I can't fill those classes? I've still got to pay my rent and all of this other stuff. Well, if I can guarantee you, bums on seats in every single class, well, that takes risk away from you as a business owner. And that, in that scenario, I believe that's what makes you more willing to pay me the money, because, I can take the risk off you. So I think that's a really big element of what people get paid for is either taking a risk or taking a risk away from the other person. So I think that that's some in the Pilates world. We often, almost all of the questions I get about pay are like, what's fair, right? What's a fair rate? And I just think like, well, who cares what's fair? Like, what's fair got to do with it? Is as a Pilates instructor, like, why do you care what's fair? I mean, we're not running a charity, like you should be paid what you're worth, not what's fair. And maybe that's a fine distinction, but what you're worth can be measured, I believe, by the value that you bring to that studio, to that business, right? And we can measure it, and we can actually do some math and figure out, okay, what is the dollar value that you are worth to that business owner? And we can do that really simply. Like, okay, well, if you're going to be teaching a class and there are 4 reformers in the room, right? And so you've got a maximum of 4 participants and you're charging $25 per participant. Well, if you fill that class, you make generating $100 revenue, right? And out of that $100 revenue, as a studio owner, well, you've got to pay rent and you've got to pay depreciation on the equipment, and you've got to pay marketing costs and all of these other things, and you've got to have some profit left over. And one of the things you've got to pay is the cost of the instructor, right? So what's the value that the instructor brings in that situation? Well, I could be the best darn instructor in the world, right? I mean, I could have taught, on Pilates anytime, I could have a following of 50,000 on my social media, and I could come to your class, but I'm still only going to generate $100 revenue per class. Right. So what am I worth to you in that situation? Well, I'm worth definitely less than $100, right? And probably less than 50, and possibly, less than 25, depending on what your other expenses are. Right. Because if you're going to pay me, what's fair for somebody who's got 50,000 social media followers and has been on Pilates anytime, well, you'd be paying me like $500 a session, and you'd be losing $400 a session. So that's just, I'm not worth that to you. It's not worth it to you. So that's not my worth in that situation. And my worth is not a reflection of like, am I a good person or any of that? It's just like, there's a financial consideration there of like, what income am I generating for you, and how much can you afford to pay out of that? So whereas if you have a room with 10 reformers in it and you're charging $25 per person, and your average class, averaged over the week, has 5 people in it, right? So 5 times 25 is $125 revenue per class, right? If I can come in and say, well, if I can guarantee you that I will average 10 people in my classes, right? So all of your other classes are averaging 5 people, but my class is going to average 10 people, and I'll guarantee that, right? Just imagine for a minute that I can guarantee it, right? Well, how much is that worth to you? Well, if I'm teaching 10 classes a week and I'm generating an extra $125 per class, that's $1,250 per week additional value that I'm adding to your business, right? So I would expect as an instructor that I should capture some of that. I should be paid a bit extra than what the regular instructor paid, because if I'm generating double as much revenue for you, I should capture some. I'm actually more valuable. My worth is higher. And, you could do a calculation. It would have to be based on, okay, what are your marketing costs? What's your rent? What's the depreciation on the equipment? All of that stuff. And there would be some amount left over after that. And, part of that would be my share as the instructor. So I think, there are 2 things. One is, one is the risk. Okay. Who's taking the risk in this situation? And if I'm the instructor and I'm getting a fixed amount, right? If I'm getting my $50 or my $40 or my $60 or whatever it is per class, well, if I show up and there are 2 people in the class and I still get paid the same amount, I've got no risk, right? Whereas if you're the studio owner and if there are only 2 people in the class and you still pay the same amount for the instructors, well, you're taking all the risk, aren't you, as a studio owner, right? So in that situation, the studio owner is taking all the risk, so the studio owner should get more reward, right? So if I say, I can I'll give you $40 every class. I don't care how many people are in the class. No people in the class, 100 people in the class, you get $40, right? By the way, we've only got 8 reformers, so there's not going to be 100 people in the class. Or if I say to you, hey, we've got 8 reformers. If you get 4 or fewer people, you only get $10, right? But for every person above 4, you get an extra $15, right? All of a sudden, the risk is on you as the instructor, right? If you've got a high risk, a high reward. If you fill the class, you make, I can't do the math, but let's say it's like $80 or $90, right? But if you don't fill the class, you only make $10, right? Whereas me as the owner now, if I don't fill the class, if I've got 4 people in the class, I only pay $10. I'm like, yes, that was a profitable class, right? If you fill the class and I pay you $90, I'm still like, yes, because I had triple the number of people, and I only paid you $90, right? So you're, as an instructor there, you're taking the risk as the instructor, right? If the class is empty, you suffer the consequences. As a studio owner, the risk is taken away from me, right? So in that situation, I would be, as a studio owner, much more prepared to pay you a higher rate because you're assuming the risk, right? Then all of a sudden it becomes your job to fill the class, right? You're running around on your social media going, hey, everyone, I've got a class on Wednesday night. You might like to come, right? Whereas if I'm paying you a flat rate per class, it's like, what do you care if there's, if I don't show up one week as a participant? It's like, you still get paid, right? So now the risk's on me as a studio owner. I'm on social media going, hey, everyone, MJ's class is on Wednesday night. Come along. She's awesome, So does that kind of make sense to you guys, the risk thing? All right, so there's the risk. Then we also said that it's like, okay, well, it's just a simple math of like, well, what revenue we're generating from that class, best case scenario, right? Like how many reformers or mats or whatever are in the room and how much you're charging per person. Well, that's your total maximum revenue. And we all know, if we've worked in studios long enough, that you can't expect to get 100% occupancy, right? Like I think when I ran a studio for a decade, like 82, 85% was really the maximum occupancy that we could have in our classes. Like, so if you've got 10 reformers over the week or over the month, you could average like 8.5 people per class, because by the time you get more than that, people always cancel at the last minute, rebook a different, you have to have a little bit of extra headroom there. So, all right, so there's that. And then there's like, thinking as a studio owner, what job, hiring an instructor, a lot of studio owners, when they pose these questions to me, ask some version of like, oh, well, I pay my experienced instructors this much, so how much should I pay my novice instructors? All right, or like, this person's asking for this much, so how much should I pay them in 2 years when they're more experienced? Or that kind of, some version of that. And, or, instructors ask like, oh, I'm new, so I should only, how much should I ask for? Because I know the experienced instructors get this much, so maybe I shouldn't charge that much, and I just think that's the wrong way to think about it. As a studio owner, like, what job are you hiring that person to do? Right? Like, it's an exchange of value, right? As a studio owner, you're giving that instructor money in exchange for what? Like, what are you getting back? What are you getting from that deal, right? Well, you get bums on reformers. That's what you get as a studio. You're saying, okay, if I give you this handful of money, show me bums on reformers. And it may be that the instructor has a direct responsibility to market their class and whatever, or it may just be that like you expect that the instructor is going to be so awesome that the clients will keep coming back and the class will fill up over time, right? But either way, if you're the studio owner, you can tell in 1 second by looking at your timetable who your best instructors are, right? Because the best instructors are defined as the ones whose classes are full all the time, right? And if I'm teaching every week and I've already always got 2 people in my class, right? I'm not one of your best instructors. Like that's how you define it, right? I might have all these qualifications and all this experience. It's like, but you're not going to keep me on the payroll forever if my classes are always empty. So the actual job you're paying me to do as an instructor, right? If you're the studio owner and I'm the instructor, the job you're paying me to do is bums on reformers. And so, all right. And so what does, if that's the job description, right? Well, what does success look like? Let's define success. All right. We've got 10 reformers in the room. What's my minimum expectation if I pay you $50 for a class? Well, I need 6 of those reformers occupied on average every class, right? Because if I'm paying you $50 and I've only got 3 people occupying reformers, well, the math doesn't add up. I'm paying you more than they're paying me, right? So I need 6 people on reformers to be able to afford to pay you $50. Now, if I had 7 people on reformers, well, I could afford to pay you $60. And if I had 8 people on reformers, I could afford to pay you $70. Does that kind of make sense? So now, but where into that equation does how many qualifications you've got matter, right? What if I've only got 3 people on reformers, but you've got like a PhD in teaching Pilates? Should I pay you more? I don't think so. So I think there's all right, what job are you hiring them to do, and what does success look like? Okay, well, if you want to keep your job, I need 6 people on average, right, over the month or over the quarter or over the whatever, right? If we're going to keep that class running, I need 6 people in it, because I've got rent and I've got marketing, I've got to pay the telephone bill and all those things, right? And so if I've got 3 people in the class, it's not break even. All right, so in that case, an average of 6 people in the class is the job I'm hiring you to do, right? And so if I can hire you and you can deliver 6 people per class on average, well, you're doing your job. High five, you win, right? And if you deliver 7 people on average, well, you're a high performer, right? So you should be remunerated a little bit more than the average bear, in my view, okay? Because you're delivering more value to me, right? I'm getting a bigger lolly bag from you, so I should give you more money for it. That's what I think, okay? And if you're delivering the holy grail of 100% full class, okay, on average, okay, well, I should basically say to you, look, what's it going to take to keep you here? Because you are a unicorn, right? Do you want me to massage your neck every night before class? Free cafe lattes. Like, what's it going to take to keep you on the team here? Okay. Whereas if you're consistently, I'm talking about on average, I'm not talking about you had a bad day, right? Because there's always, when it rains, people stay away. There's always that stuff, right? I'm talking about averaged over the month or even better over the quarter. Okay. If we say that your job is to deliver me 6 bums on 6 reformers on average every class, right? And then we look back over the last 3 months and your average is 5, well, you're not meeting expectations in that situation, right? Because we made a deal, and the deal was, I'm going to give you this much money and you're going to give me 6 bums on 6 reformers, right? And I gave you the money, but you didn't give me the bums, right? So then we've either got to renegotiate how much I'm paying you, or we've got to say, actually, no, I'm going to get someone else who can get me 6 bums on 6 reformers. And that's what we would do. Like, just say you were working in marketing or something, or working in digging ditches, right? And your job was to dig, 6 meters of ditch every day, right? And then at the end of the month, you'd only dug 5 meters a day. Well, you're not succeeding in that role, right? So we've got to talk about, okay, how can we help you succeed, or how do we get someone else who can succeed in that role? So the last thing, so there's risk, okay? There's, well, what's the math of the situation? How many reformers have you got, or mats have you got in the room? What are you charging your clients, right? So it's like, what are the actual financial constraints on what you can afford to pay? And the third one is, what job are you hiring them to do, right? You're hiring to put a certain number of bums on a certain number of mats or reformers or Cadillacs or whatever, right? And what does success look like, and what does not meeting expectations look like, and what does exceeding expectations look like, and what will happen if I don't meet expectations, and what will happen if I exceed expectations? And the third one, lost count how many we're up to, but whatever, the last one that I want to talk about is supply and demand, right? So if I'm in the big city, if I'm in Melbourne or Los Angeles or Miami or somewhere like that, and there's like 500 Pilates studios in the city, right? And I can't, I can walk out my front door, walk 50 meters in either direction, or past 3 Pilates studios, right? Well, there's a lot of supply and there's not enough instructors to go around. So instructors are going to earn more, right? It's just basic supply and demand, right? When you go to the supermarket and there's no toilet paper because it's the start of the pandemic, and there's someone out the front going, toilet paper, $30 a roll, you're like, you seriously consider it, Whereas when you go to the supermarket and you can buy like 12 rolls of toilet paper for $3, it's like, you're not going to pay $20 a roll for toilet paper. There's a lot of supply, right? So supply and demand has a big influence on price, right? So if there's a lot of work and not many instructors, well, the instructors are going to earn more. Whereas if you're in a location where you're the only Pilates studio in 20 miles, okay, and there are 3 local instructors and they all need a job, well, guess what? There's too much supply of instructors and not enough demand for instructors. So the one that bids the lowest might be the one that gets the job. So, yeah, so those are my thoughts. I'd love to have your thoughts. What do you guys reckon?
I totally agree with you. I think I totally agree with you. For us, we just pay a certain amount and that's what you get all the time. And then you get a bonus on top, and that's been working really well. You're sure to always get paid the same, and then they agree to that. But if you fill up the classes more, then you can get a lot more. And that's very motivating, and that's working really well. The supply and demand thing, it's a true thing. Yeah, that's very different, like from where you are, from where you're going to live or teach. A question I have is, do you think it's harder for male instructors to fill up the classes? Because I have that issue. A very great instructor, but he's a male instructor, and I feel like some people just don't want to have their feet in straps with male. So I don't know if it's related to the first question. I was missing the first part, but if you have a thought on that.
I mean, in my experience, 90% of instructors are women, as you guys all know. But I've worked with a bunch of male instructors who are incredibly popular, and I think the opposite could equally apply. Like, okay, there are so few male instructors around. Even if only 20% of women like a male instructor, well, that's still twice as many women want a male instructor as there are male instructors. Right? Because only 10% of instructors are, roughly male instructors. So I don't think like saying male instructors are less popular is probably correct. I think, sure, as a man, like when I used to teach legs in straps, I would always, before I said, okay, let's get our feet in the straps, I would walk around to the head end.
He does that. Yeah.
All of that stuff. But maybe it comes down to your particular clientele, and the culture of your studio and how that person fits in. But I wouldn't say it's in my experience, it's a thing that male instructors are less or more popular. Really, I think it's just down to the interpersonal skills and the technical skills of the individual people. Heath, who works for us, he's got tattoos from head to foot, and is heterosexual and is a total male. His class is just insanely popular. So I don't think there's a correlation there.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
What about the rest of you guys? Hillary, you got something to say?
Sorry, I've never raised my hand in a class before here. So, I was just wondering, like, how else would you, kind of like get money, like association? So like, sure, if an instructor isn't getting that many people in their class, but maybe that's just because their class time sucks, like it's like a late night session or something and nobody wants to go to those, or like what other aspects, like would you do surveys for your clients, or like what other ways would you rate that instructor?
That's a great question. And so I think it's worth really just double clicking on that, okay, well, if you're teaching, say, just about everywhere I've ever worked, Monday evenings have been the most popular times, amongst clients. And Friday nights have generally been like the desert wasteland, where it's like, you can try any different instructor, you can try different class types, you change the times a bit. It's like still, it's hard to fill those classes. So I think we definitely have to make some kind of allowance for that. So if I put you on at, the studios that I've owned, if I put you on at 6 p.m. on Monday, it's like, it doesn't matter how crap you are, your class is going to be full. Whereas if I put you on, Thursday, 7 p.m., pretty much doesn't matter how awesome you are, your class is probably only going to be 1/3 occupied. So we definitely have to make allowances for that. And I think at any given studio, you'll know what the individual, what the times of week are where you expect those classes to be full. And you'll know what the times of week are where you expect them to be empty. And I think you need to so that you need to make allowance for that. Some of the ways that you could make allowance for that would be, okay, taking those particular classes out of the calculation when you're calculating average occupancy. Okay, so we won't count the classes that we know that we could fill with any monkey, teaching it, and we won't count the classes that we know that we couldn't fill even if it was John Gary or Romana teaching it. So we'll just take those ones off the spreadsheet and only count the kind of the intermediate classes. I'd definitely recommend some kind of feedback mechanism that you use, as a studio owner, regularly, to get feedback about your instructors and to make it really easy for your clients to give feedback. So we used to just have a little paper form that people filled out straight after class and had like 3 or 4 questions, rating of 1 to 5. How awesome was that class? 1 is, vomit, never coming back. I'm giving up Pilates. 5 is like I attained nirvana and, all the secrets of the universe were revealed to me. And just different grades in between. What was awesome or shitty about that class for you? What could we do better for next time? And just real simple. And mostly people just circle a number, right? And you just look at the numbers that people get on average. But fairly often people would go, oh yeah, here are the specific bits of feedback that I want to give to that instructor. And people, like you guys have had regular clients. By the time people are pretty regular clients, they're not backward in giving their feedback. Oh no, she talked too loud, or I didn't like this joke that she said, or tell her to get, not to wear the yellow leggings next time, or whatever. So they'll tell you like exactly. And the other thing you can do as a studio owner, which is I think just about the best bit of advice I ever got, is hang around outside the change rooms after class. So, and just with your ear open, going and just listening, because people come after class and they're getting change and they talk about the class together and they go, oh, wasn't it awesome when we did blah, 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 or I hate the way she always plays the same playlist, or, she's crap at counting, but isn't it awesome? Like they'll but they don't know that you're listening. All right. And that's when you get their true feedback. So that's kind of a little tip there, I think, in terms of getting super honest feedback, because I don't think they're giving you feedback. They think they're just secretly discussing it. How do you guys, think we should calculate value for an instructor?
Well, I did kind of have a question about that, in considering like who, when you are just getting started, something like that, like who is better to be taking the risk in that situation? Or do you find like a little bit more of a give and take where there is that negotiation where the instructor can get incentivized to where, if they can produce and get more bums on the seat after a certain amount, there is that incentive? Or so like everybody's taking a bit of risk and ownership of themselves, I guess. Or do you think like the studio owners, like while people are just getting started, like it's kind of up to them to take the risk and kind of put their faith in you that you are going to deliver the best service for their studio and their clients? Like, what do you reckon?
Well, yeah, what a great question. So, that the risk profile changes as you become more experienced, if you become better as you become more experienced, because it's possible to have many thousands of hours and still not learn anything from it. But assuming that you're new and you're enthusiastic and excited and passionate, but you haven't really cut your teeth yet, how does that risk profile look? Well, I think, if we put ourselves in the shoes of a studio owner, right? So just say you're a studio owner and you've got a problem because you've got a few classes that aren't performing, right? Or you've got someone going on maternity leave who's been really excellent and their classes are full, and you're worried that whoever you get to replace them will not bring as many clients into the studio, right? And so you're seeing the dollars go down in your bank, and it's not like you're filthy rich. It's like, oh, if I lose $1,000 a week, that might mean that I can't afford to own a car anymore or something. Like there might be a material, detriment to you as a studio owner if those classes aren't populated. And then you have a couple of applicants and you like them both. They're both a good cultural fit, and they're both keen, and they're both, passionate, and they're, they both did a good audition. But one of them's got, 10 years of experience and they know, you know, at their last studio that their classes were overflowing with a wait list every week, right? And the other one graduated a month ago and has never taught a professional class yet, right? What's the risk that you perceive for employing each of those people, right? You perceive a much greater risk in employing the person who's got no track record, right? Even though they're passionate, excited, a good fit, you know, auditioned well, all of that stuff. It's like they don't have the history of producing the results yet, right? So it is a bigger risk to employ that person, right? Whereas if I can employ somebody who's I know has been working just up the road and packing out their classes week on week on week on week, and now they want to come work for me, I'm like, I'll take that bet any day, right? And I will pay that person more any day. But if the more inexperienced person comes and says, well, you know what, I'll work for $20 less per class, right? Or if I only half fill my classes, don't pay me, right? But if I pack them out, pay me this much, right? Well, that takes the risk away from me as a studio owner, doesn't it? So I think, you know, as a new grad, you can use a couple of different strategies to take on some of that risk that the studio owner assumes by employing you. You know, one is you could charge less, right? So it's just less risk. Well, the other one is you could say, hey, look, I'll take some of the risk by, like, if I don't fill my classes, I'll take a pay cut, right? So pay me a low base rate. But if I do fill my classes, I want to get paid the same as any other person, right? Because if I'm filling my classes, I'm worth just as much as that instructor with 10 years experience to you. And, you know, just say you're not competing with someone who's more experienced, right? Just say you're in some kind of small country town and there's only one studio and there's only one instructor, right? So then it's like, oh, well, you know, who else are you going to get if I don't get the job? So it becomes like, all right, well, what's the risk of employing me? What's the risk of not employing me? Right? But that has to go both ways, because, like, well, if the studio and it doesn't employ you, where are you going to get a job, right? So there's only one place you can get a job. So there's a match of supply and demand in that situation, right? So it has to be mutually, you know, agreed. This is not Fanny. You're doing this. You're using this kind of pricing model, right? You're paying value.
Yeah. I manage 3 studios, and like I said, you know, we don't have that many instructors available here. I've always thought that the owner was the one to take the risk, and never thought, the instructor could take the risk. Never saw it like that. I always thought, you know, it's my studio, it's my role to fill it up and help the instructors, until last week I put all the numbers together and saw an instructor was really underperforming. And I'm like, I've been trying to help him and I've given all the tools, you know, and then you arrive to the point where you're like, okay, what more can I do? And then now I'm thinking, now, and then we're having that conversation actually makes me think, well, either he has to take a pay cut and he stay with us, either we're going to have to replace him. Because as a studio owner, he brings, not owner, but manager, he brings all our numbers down, and he's teaching so many hours for us that it's just, like we're not making profit at this stage. And so we have to make a big decision. And as much as I absolutely love this instructor and think, you know, it's great, but so now I'm thinking maybe he should be taking more risk, or to be more motivated, because the system we've got now, where you get that much money and you get, no matter how, if your class only has one client, you still get that amount, which is a fairly good amount for New Zealand. And then you can get a lot more. Like I get paid nearly double because my classes are full. You know what I mean? So that's really good. It works really well. But in this case, when that doesn't work, then maybe, I never thought about that, but, you know, renegotiating, like you're saying, his salary is probably the way to go. So it's hard because you want to give everyone the same. And that's when I started, we were not on the same salary. Not all the instructors were on the same salary. And I changed that. And I'm like, no, I want everyone to be on the same salary. And then you have that bonus. because it's not fair. Because like it's exactly right. I had an instructor that had been teaching for 10 years, but clients were bored. Like they didn't keep coming. And then a new instructor that was only 2 months graduated, and she was filling up her classes because she was fun. And it's the atmosphere you bring to the class as well. And there's no way to know that unless you try. So that's why. So we all start at the same. We all have the same, and then we have a chance to make more, depending on how many seats you fill. So yeah, it's hard. It's but now I'm thinking maybe if the instructor takes more risk, then I can afford to keep him or her.
Yeah, well, I love your tiered system where you pay people for performance, because this idea that everyone should be paid the same, to me, well, that's unfair. What if there are 2 instructors, and I sit on my ass all the time, and I just show up 1 minute before class, teach the same boring class every time, never learn my clients' names, etc. But I'm doing the same number of hours. And then MJ is, she's on social media 5 times a day promoting the studio, and she remembers all the customers' names and their dogs' names and their kids' names, and she comes up with these amazing class plans every day, and she's there 20 minutes early to sign everyone in, and her classes are full, right? Well, why is it fair that she gets the same that I get? That's not fair.
The set price that we give our instructors is still quite high. Like it's $45, and for New Zealand, it's still quite high. Like 50 would be what we could give without bonus to anyone. But for $45, you still get paid really well, even if you only fill 2 or 3. And we need actually 4 at minimum to be able to pay that instructor. So it's still quite high. Like I'm not starting really low. I'm starting at a really good price, and then I give them the opportunity to go up on top of that.
You're starting at a good price. The only thing that you haven't done is set the expectation of what you get for that, right? And which is you said you need 4 people in the class.
Yeah, they know.
Well, I think, and you didn't precisely ask for my advice, but would you be open if I...
Oh, yeah.
That in relation to this person, this underperforming instructor who's teaching a large number of classes, okay, that is a massive red flag for me. And when you said the studio is not profitable right now, to me that red flag turns into an emergency siren.
Yeah.
That person is one of your key employees, and they are underperforming. Right. And like you said, they're dragging the whole team down. They're dragging the whole average down. And in fact, they're dragging the studio down because the studio is not profitable. Or in other words, we call that going to go bankrupt if you keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that person needs to either be managed up or managed out.
Yeah.
Right. So paying someone less to underperform is not a good long-term strategy for business success. Right. Okay. If you said to me, my strategy is to get kind of below average instructors and just pay them poorly, right? I would say you're not probably going to succeed. That's not a great business strategy, right? Whereas if you said my business strategy is to get competent instructors and pay them a reasonable amount, as long as they deliver 4 people in every class, I would say that could be a winning strategy, right? And if you said to me, my strategy is to get exceptional instructors who can deliver me 6 people in every class day in, day out, and to pay them well above average, I would say that could be a winning strategy, right? But I think getting below average instructors, as in people who can't deliver 4 people per class, people who can only deliver 3 people per class, right, and paying them less isn't a winning strategy, because it's not just the cost for the instructor, right? And as you know this very, very well, you've got fixed costs. So even if you don't run any classes, even if you don't pay any instructors, you've still got cost. You've got your rent, you've got your telephone bill, you've got, all of these other costs. And so paying less for fewer people in classes isn't a good way to save money.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
How do you have that conversation with the instructors saying,
cut
down the hours? Or?
Here's the thing. When you let that person go, everyone else in the business will breathe a sigh of relief. everyone else in the business. Because guess what? You guys here are all here because you are passionate about what you do and you are passionate to improve your skills and be the best you can be, right? So you're not happy being mediocre, right? Well, you go to a studio to work, right? And you're there doing your thing, being excellent, studying and practicing and getting inspired and writing your classes and all of those things that you do. And then you see an instructor who's not pulling their weight, right? And you see them get the management giving that person more classes than you get, right? How do you feel about that? What does that say to you? What message does that send to you about what the management values in an employee, right? And then just say, you come to work one Monday morning and the manager there calls a meeting and says, hey, everyone, look, I just wanted to let you know I've let that instructor go, right? And here's why we let them go. As you've all seen over the last 3 months, their classes have been poorly attended, right? And we've tried multiple strategies here. We tried this and this and this and this and this to help them increase their class attendance, but we weren't able to get them across the line. So we just had to let them go because this is a team of high performers and you guys here are all high performers and I want people of your standard or better, right? That's what we need. And everybody's going to give you a freaking high five. I guarantee it. No one's going to go, I'm really upset that you let that person go. I mean, they might be sad for that person. They might feel, emotional in the moment, etc. But within a week, the morale is going to lift in your workplace and people are going to come and go, oh, I could take the Monday night classes or, people will step forward and go, oh, I've got a friend who's looking for work or whatever. Like stuff will come up and you'll see people's games lift. And I can promise you that. And the way you have the conversation with that person is just really straightforward. I mean, you are right now, and thank you for being so, honest and brave to share this, right? And so I really appreciate that. Because I imagine that there are other people either on the call or watching after who are in a very similar situation because this is not uncommon. That you feel bad about letting that person go because you made a bad hire or you haven't been able to support that person and you feel bad about doing something that you feel is kind of like going to hurt them, right? Because you don't want to hurt people. But this could be the best thing that ever happened to them, right? I mean, have all of us here, I'm sure I've had experiences like this where I was somewhere, I was doing a shit job, right? I got let go. That was a wake-up call for me. I was like, oh, I've got to do better. Or it just wasn't a good fit, right? Maybe this is an excellent instructor and it's just not a good fit for your clients or your culture or, whatever, right? They can succeed somewhere else. And maybe somewhere else will be a different studio. Maybe they'll need to get new skills before they can succeed, or maybe they need to succeed in a different industry. But they're not succeeding with you, right? Now, who's been in a job where you're not succeeding? I mean, how does that feel? Right? You come to work, day after day, you're trying everything, you're trying to succeed, and it's just like, yeah, your classes are empty, your classes are empty, your classes are empty, right? How does that feel? That feels shit, right? And then you get let go, and that feels shit, but then you find a new job where your classes are full, and you're like, oh, this is what it's meant to feel like, right? I'm so glad Fanny let me go. At the time, I was kind of pissed off, but now I realize it's the freaking best thing that's ever happened to me. Yeah.
Thanks.
And so you just got to be upfront, right? You feel bad about it, but actually you've got to get in the mindset that I'm going to do you the biggest favor anyone's ever done you by letting go of you now.
Yeah. Well, I give him all the tools, all the warnings. He's got, he knows. He's like,
It's time to cut the cord. It's time to say, hey, look.
The numbers don't lie, and it's just, at some point, there's not much else I can do. Yeah.
And I would say that point is now.
Yeah.
And it's never, by putting it off, it's not going to get easier.
No, it's been too long. I mean, he was here before I arrived, so that's why it's hard, It's just, but.
I think then it makes it easier for you because it wasn't your fault for making a mistake in hiring him. Like, I would never have hired this guy.
True.
All right. Well, hopefully that gives you some unpleasant things to do. But once you rip that Band-Aid off, the air will come in and things will start improving pretty quickly. But I do strongly recommend that you're very transparent about it. Obviously, when you have the conversation with that staff member, you do it in private. And you do it, obviously no staff around, no customers around, whatever. But then that you are transparent with the rest of your team afterwards, obviously, about why, right? And that what you did to try and help that person perform.
Yeah.
Okay, we let this person go because they weren't performing, and you guys all saw that. They only had 3 people in the class, and that's not break even for us. Break even's 4, right? So we're actually giving that person money to work here, right? It's costing us money for that person to work here. We're not a charity, okay? We are a place where we strive for excellence. You guys are excellent. You're all delivering 4 and 5 people per class. That's what we need. And here are the 5 things we did to try and help that person improve, over the last 6 months or 3 months or whatever. And at this point, we just have to say it's not working, okay? So if any of you want to take over these shifts, that'd be awesome, because you guys are so awesome and your job here is so secure because you perform.
Well, some of you guys, if you want to come to New Zealand, it's great. There are plenty of hours for you. Come on in. Thanks, Raph. Thanks.
Amanda might reach out to you. Yeah, so we've got a few minutes left. Is there anything else you want to ask or contribute on this topic, or indeed on a different topic?
Morning, Raph. It's Nike. How are you?
Hi, Nike. Jen, if you want to say something, I'll keep you first of the line after Nike. Nike.
No, I just wanted to kind of say that I totally agree with you, and I think you and I had that conversation when I finished my Cert 4, that sometimes it's not so much the experience as an instructor, but it's your fit in the studio, and sometimes even just your fit at particular classes. I worked in some shifts in the same studio where I could relate a bit more to the clients, just because maybe they were mums like me, or maybe they were, on the same wavelength as me. And so the classes were feeling a little bit more, because obviously we had that kind of, relationship. Whereas, if I did a cover in the exact same studio at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday and I didn't know anyone, then it wouldn't be the same, and it wouldn't even feel the same for me. I would feel it, that it would just, the energy would be different in the room, right? So maybe that instructor is amazing. Fanny's instructor I'm talking about. Maybe Fanny's instructor is amazing, but maybe he doesn't belong in that studio. Maybe he belongs in another brand to do his own thing. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, great contribution, Nike. 100% agree. Jen, what did you want to say?
Hi, Raph. I'm at the other end of the spectrum with wanting to know what's a good price for the client. I finished my clinical Pilates diploma, which is very nice this month. I've opened up a small clinic with just one reformer, the spine corrector and the what's that one behind me?
The chair.
Chair. So, I'm wanting, I can only do small groups. At the moment, my books are almost full with one-on-ones. I'm charging $40. I'm in a suburban area. I'm wondering I've checked out what closest people around me are doing, and no one's doing anything under 55. But I feel I've got the level of experience now where I can run a small group, that I can do that clinical level really as well as I can after 3 years of learning. So what does the group think is a fair price for a one-on-one? And if you had 3 in a class, what would be a fair price?
Can I give my 10 cents worth?
Please, first? Absolutely.
I'd really love to hear what other people have got to say here, but I'm sorry, I've just got such a strong opinion on this.
Oh, good. I'm all ears.
Well, I just think that word fair is the wrong way of thinking about it. Okay. So, what's the right price is the question I hear you asking. Now, there are the note, behind the word fair, I think is there's kind of an unspoken and maybe even unconscious assumption that we can, take advantage of people by charging too much. Right? But that's just not true, right? So just say I'm selling my phone on eBay, right? It's an iPhone 11 or something like that. Who gets to set the price?
You do.
I do, right? Who gets to decide how much it's actually worth? I could set the price $50,000, right? So if I make this $50,000, that doesn't compel you to pay $50,000 for it, does it? You're going to look at it and go, what the? I'm not going to pay $50,000 for that bit of junk. I could get one for a 50th of that price, right? So I can't take advantage of you. I can't compel you to buy it at a price where you don't see the value.
I see where you're headed.
Now, value is very subjective, right? I mean, all of you guys on the call today, what is something that you see other people spend lots of money on that you think that is such a stupid waste of money? What do people spend all that money on that for? What is something that, just yell it out. What's something you see people spending money on? Shoes. All right. I spent $300 on a pair of Nikes, right? They're customized. They're signed by this person, that person. They're, waste of money, according to Jen, right? Well, but the person that I spent $300 on those shoes, did I think it was a waste of money? Did I think those shoes were worth less than $300? No, because I spent $300 on them, right? I mean, why would I pay $300 for a pair of shoes I didn't think was worth $300? Right? What's something that you spend money on, and not just you, Jen, but anyone on the call, what's something that you spend money on because you appreciate quality, right? Where maybe your significant other, right? Or maybe other people in your life just look at you and go, what the hell are you spending $10,000 on a freaking Pilates thing for? Can't you buy one for $50? Right? Or why do you buy the $300 Lululemons when you can get them for $20 from Cotton On? Right? Because the Cotton On ones, they cover your legs just the same as the Lululemon ones, right? They stop people seeing your undies just the same, right? So what's the difference? Well, why would you pay 10 times as much? Well, because to you, they're 10 times more valuable, the Lululemon ones, right? And so it's the same with the price of a Pilates session. Well, how much is it worth? Well, that depends what someone's prepared to pay for it, right? So if I've got terrible back pain and I've tried this, that, and the other, right, with no success, and I'm just dying for relief, right, and I come to you and after 5 sessions my back's feeling so much better and I'm back to doing the things I love, well, how much is that worth?
And that's definitely a number of stories I'm having with my demographic, which is slightly older than what I can see could be happening with the group, 50 plus, a couple of 20-year-olds who have had operations, and the success. I'm excited. I'm excited for their success, and that this Pilates has been able to help them. So I know that happens.
Right, and if I'm just going on riffing on what you said there, right? So if I'm an older person, maybe I'm in my 60s or 70s, okay, and I see the alternatives are I could go to KX Pilates, which is sort of like this super high intensity fitness based group Pilates class full of
which is just around the corner from me. Okay? Yeah,
and they're all doing their splits and handstands and things, and I'm thinking like, not real. That's not really a fit for me. Okay, yeah. Or I could. And they're not clinical at all. They're just a fitness based, which is not bad. Correct. Like I love KX. I think KX is fantastic, but it's not a fit for that particular client, right?
Correct.
Or I could go to Jen, and Jen is highly personalised, clinically trained, caring person of roughly my age bracket. She's not a size 8, 20-year-old in the latest fluoro Lululemon things doing splits, right? I think here's someone who gets me. Right? Here's someone who I can relate to. Here's somebody who's going to give me that personalised attention and care. Like, is that worth more or less than the KX class to me?
It's just it's for what you want, it's worth more.
It's worth a lot more. You couldn't pay me enough to go to that KX class. Right. And again, I love KX. I think it's awesome. But I'm thinking for that particular demographic of people, right?
Mm.
So how much is it worth? Well, how much is it worth to who? Right. I think that's the question. So and I think, you know, by definition, if you're full, you're charging too little. So yeah, over to the group. We've got a few minutes. What do you guys reckon?
Yes, please.
Totally agree with you, Raph. I increased my prices last year, and no one left. They were all happy. No one left. They kept on going, and I think you provide a service, and that's the service that's valuable. And if they love it, they'll keep coming because they know how much you're worth, rather than just you could have something $5 cheaper. Doesn't mean it's going to be better. And then, I think people, and my clients, 80% of my clients are over 65. And now they're happy to pay that price, and they've been to cheaper studios, but they come back to us because of the service. Yeah. So definitely don't undervalue yourself. That's something I was scared of. I said, I don't want to raise too much. And then that's where the owner said, no, go for it. You know how good you are, and there's no problem. So definitely raise your price at least to the same as where the others are, like 55. Is that what you were saying? Mm-hmm. Don't be scared, because you have the degree behind it. And then you'll see your clients that love you, they will be your best referrers. And that's how you fill up your studio. And then with your classes, if you have 3 classes, calculate the costs. That's to you, and how much money you can make from that. And then that's where you decide on your price, I think. Because you don't want to, just start working for free. You know what I mean? Like, because there is a cost of running all this and the equipment.
Correct.
And so it's just as important. Something it's hard to say, I'm going to raise my prices. I know it's just like, oh my God, I'm going to do the back client. No, just give it a try and you'll see. Yeah. It's worth it, because I did not lose any of my clients.
And even if you do lose some of your clients, right? So I would advocate, Amanda says on chat, I didn't do an hour length one-on-one for less than $100 when I had my studio. And I would say, there's a lot of information about quality contained in price, right? So if I say there are 2 pairs of leggings, one's $10 and one's $250, okay, you've already formed an opinion about the relative quality of those 2 pairs of leggings, right? With no information apart from the price.
Yeah.
Right? So if I say there are 2 Pilates classes, one's $40 and one's $55, okay, there is some information about quality contained in that price, right? Now, if you've positioned yourself, which it sounds like you have, right, as being highly relevant for that particular demographic, the older, injured / in pain, unwell demographic, okay, you get them, you're for them, right? You're worth more to them than the ones that are currently charging more than you, right? So I would say put your prices up by at least 50%, okay, up to 100%. Okay, but there's a way to do it. And the way to do it is you give your current clients plenty of warning, right? You say, hey, on such and such a date, say 30 days hence, okay, our prices are going up to this, right? And now, because you're a loyal client and I really appreciate you, being a client, I wanted to give you advance warning so you've got a chance to, buy as many 10 packs as you want and lock in this rate that you currently have, right? So if you want to take, I don't want to take advantage of you. I want you to have plenty of warning so okay, I can buy 5 10 packs at the current price and they'll last me for the next, 6 months or whatever, right? But just so you know, on such and such a date, the prices are going up, right? And that'll be for all new people. And so then on such and such a date, you just put your prices up. And then when your regular clients come back in to buy their 10 pack, they know the prices went up yesterday, right? You told them a month before, you gave them plenty of notice. And now you might lose I don't know. I'm with Fanny. I think you probably lose none or a very, very small percentage of your clients, because that's been my experience. But just say you lost 20% of your clients. Well, you just doubled your prices and you lost 20% of your clients. So now you're making 30% more money and seeing 20% fewer clients. How's that a bad thing?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Because now you've got more time to write your client notes and do research and think about how you're going to serve those clients better, and do text messages to them to follow up and check on how they're feeling after the session. Like, you got all of this opportunity to give better service to fewer people who really value the service and are prepared to pay for it, right? And you can get them even better results with less work. I don't see any negative to that.
No, it's good advice.
And MJ says, how about online courses to be paid for the instructor? MJ, I don't quite understand the question, but so can I just get you to unmute and clarify what the question is? And I'm sorry, I don't think we'll have time to answer it today, but I want to take a note of it and answer it next time.
Okay, because some instructors just have online course now, not in the studio, at home, then how to pay for them?
I would say it's all, I can't answer that one. It's just like, well, what are you paying them to do, right? Put bums on reformers, right? So I don't care if they got their qualification off the back of a cornflakes packet, really. I mean, if you can come into my studio, as long as you're legally able to teach, and you can put 6 people in that room or 10 people, whatever number of people you need in the room, right? That's what you're paying them for. And if they deliver that, they should get the same pay as everyone else who delivers that. And if they can't deliver that, you shouldn't employ them. Yeah. So I would say, you might have certain training courses that okay, I've had 5 people from this one training course and they all are really good. So you might have more trust there. You perceive that as a lower risk. But I would just be, it's like, okay, any instructor I would employ, I would say, and this is for any employee we employ, so we have 32 people in our company at the moment. Everybody's on a 3-month ramp up, okay? Here are our expectations. Once you're fully, settled in and everything's running, we expect you to have an average of 6 people in your class, or whatever number that is for you, right? 6, 8, 5, whatever, right? In month 1, we expect you to do 1/3 of that, right? So at the end of month 1, I expect you to be averaging at least 2 people in your class. Now, if you're averaging 2 people in your class at the end of month 1, we'll say we're on track, okay, and everything's good. If you're only averaging 1 person at the end of 1 month, this isn't working. See ya, right? Month 2, I expect you to do 66%, 2/3, right, of your full allocation. So if your full allocation is 6 people in class, okay, at the end of 2 months, I expect you to be averaging 4 people. If after 2 months you're averaging 4 people, we're on track, okay, you're a good fit, you're performing, you're delivering results. If it's less than 4, I'm sorry, you're not performing. There's not a seat on the bus for you. After 3 months, I need you to be averaging 6 people, because that's what I'm paying you for, right? And if you're not averaging 6 people, we manage up or out. And if it's the first month, I would say, okay, we'll give you we give you another month, okay? But it's like, this is this is not messing around here. Like, this is why we exist. We exist as a business to have 6 people in each of these classes at least. That's our job here, right? And if we're not achieving that, then we're not achieving our purpose and our mission. Yeah. Hope that helps. All right. So fantastic questions and contributions. Thank you, everybody. And I hope you found this topic stimulating. I'd love to have your questions in the Facebook comments if you're listening afterwards. And I look forward to seeing you in a week. Enjoy your week.